So I am here in Interlaken today. I'm just on my way through to Annecy, and I want to get an impression of the paragliding area here. Well, in the back here we can see the Amisbühl, which is a mountain that offers different takeoff options. And there are also various mountains around us which are suitable for paragliding. So let's have a look. On Amisbühl mountain we find the two takeoffs, Chalet and Bergbo, both directed to the southeast. A little bit further up the mountain we find the upper and the lower Amisbühl Takeoff, also to the southeast. A little bit lower than these two takeoffs there's the Bergbo Takeoff, which is especially suitable for small hike and fly trips, as it is only a height difference of 500 meters. The landing site, called Lehn, is just below the takeoffs at the bottom of the mountain. The Amisbühl takeoffs can be reached easily by bus and a short hike, and after about 25 to 30 minutes the hike ends at the upper Amisbühl Takeoff. The height difference from the takeoff to the landing is about 800 meters. And shortly after takeoff you have a great view to Interlaken and to the lakes. And a lot of tandem pilots, paragliders and hang gliders are using this takeoff for launching. The lower Amisbühl takeoff is just a couple of meters below the upper takeoff to the left hand side here. To me, this launch site didn't look long or steep enough to get out in the air safely. I would always use the upper takeoff. So here now a view to the Amisbühl takeoffs from the air. A 5 minutes walk from Amisbühl, Chalet and Bergbo takeoffs can be reached. Here we can see the Chalet takeoff, which was closed for visiting pilots during my stay. Height difference to the landing is same as Amisbühl, about 750 meters. Bergbo takeoff is directly bordering Chalet. Both takeoffs are more exposed to the south than Amisbühl. I would consider them as south or southeast-south takeoffs. Both are easy launching and can be used during the whole year. The overall wind direction is not really influencing them, and the best time window for launching into the thermals is in the early afternoon. Right in front of us we are now able to see all of the Amisbühl takeoffs. Amisbühl upper takeoff, Amisbühl lower takeoff, Chalet, and finally Bergbo. The corresponding landing to all these takeoffs is called Lehn, a broad meadow close to the lake. On the way down to the landing, a beautiful view to the lake can be enjoyed. And to the right there is another takeoff called Amisbuhl. It has an altitude of a bit more than 1000 meters and is therefore in reach for a short hike. According to the local paragliding club, when the wind comes from the mountain at the landing site, this takeoff might be in a lee. The height difference to the landing is about 500 meters, so the thermals are starting later in the afternoon. Here you can see me approaching Lehn Landing. According to the Swiss Hang Gliding Association, the altitude reduction should be done in left circles unlike I do it in the video. But nobody has been around me in this situation, so I did not put anybody into danger. There's a warning about turbulences at the landing in strong wind conditions. Outside landing should be avoided, as the meadows around the landing field all belong to different farmers. Yeah, this is really an easy landing field. About 250 meters above the upper Amisbühl Takeoff, Hohwald is located. Another takeoff to the southeast-south, and from here the Höhenmatte Landing right in the middle of Interlaken can be reached easily. Hohwald actually is a skiing slope which can be used in summer for takeoff. It takes about half an hour of extra hiking to get up here compared to the Amisbühl takeoffs. The altitude is between 15 and 1600 meters and the height difference is nearly 1000 meters to the landing. So there's an advantage to take this launching site compared to the lower ones. The launching side is very flat, so that if there's no wind, you have to run a lot. Shortly after takeoff, you can enjoy spectacular views to the famous mountains of Eiger, Mönch and Jungfrau directly in front of you. Here I'm on my way to Höhenmatte, the landing in the middle of Interlaken. Reaching this landing is possible from Amisbühl, but even more easy from Hohwald, where I just started. Now this is a beautiful view over Interlaken, and down to the left you see the Höhenmatte Landing, which we will pick up later in the video again. Up here you can see Niederhorn, the highest takeoff of the Interlaken paragliding area, which will be our next destination. And right in front here we have a final view to the Hohwald Takeoff. To get there, it is a 30 minutes bus ride past Amisbuhl and then up the mountain with the cable car. On top of Niederhorn, there is a beautiful view to the surrounding mountain range. I am at Niederhorn Takeoff, and as I assumed before I came up here, the wind comes from the northwest and the takeoff is to the south. It's not too much wind, but it's a steady wind, and I will not be able to start here today. I'll go back down to Amisbuhl to launch there. But It still was quite exciting to come up here to see how the takeoff looks like. Unfortunately, it's very exposed to the wind and therefore cannot be used as often as the lower takeoffs at Amisbühl or Hohwald. Zero wind or even wind from the front, this would be a great takeoff. Yeah, not too steep, long enough to get out in the air safely, and after the takeoff you can fly to the left and then go to the landings. To consider in east wind situations, from Niederhorn to Lehn Landing it is about 4.5 kilometers in distance. There's no landing possibility in between. After having seen the Amisbühl takeoffs and the Lehn Landing, we visited the Hohwald Takeoff to the southeast-south and had a quick look to the Höhenmatte Landing from the air. The last stop was Niederhorn, and finally now we will visit the Breitenlauen Takeoff on the other side of the valley. It is a northwest takeoff and the landing should be Höhenmatte, but there's also an emergency landing in between at the heliport. To get up to Breitenlauen, a tourist train has to be used. Here we can see Breitenlauen Takeoff at about 1600 meters of altitude, so the height difference to the landing is about 1000 meters. I think this takeoff should not cause any problems for anybody. It is not too steep, very wide and open. Directly after the launch, the valley of Interlaken is in front of the pilot. To reach the landing from this takeoff, the pilot has to take some caution because there are restricted areas in the air around the Interlaken heliport. The orange area around the heliport has to be passed with an altitude of minimum 800 meters above the ground. The yellow areas have to be passed even higher at 1100 or 1200 meters. As the height difference from the takeoff is only 1000 meters above the ground, this might be quite challenging. The arrow indicates approximately the location of the heliport. The second arrow shows the emergency landing, which can only be accessed from the other side to avoid violating the restricted airspace over the heliport. After crossing the valley, there is this great view of Interlaken shortly before the landing approach. Here to the left we can see Höhenmatte Landing right in the middle of the town. Landing should be done on the northwestern part of the area. Right circle if the wind is from the mountain, left circle if the wind is from the valley. Here we have a nice view to the landing on the left-hand side. There's a warning for this landing. In strong wind conditions, there might be turbulences and lay situations due to the buildings around. Here I'm now approaching the final leg, and there's not a lot of pilots in the air, but we find frequently a lot of tandem pilots and also deltas carrying turrets around. I hope you have enjoyed my video of this beautiful paragliding area of Interlaken.